Hi there, eighth graders. We are going to be working on some narratives, and so we have a sample one here for you. Um, and so, what we're going to do is we're going to read it out loud, and then you are going to analyze it based on certain requirements that are in personal narratives. Okay, so this one is called One Day Can Change a Life. It was a new year that I would never forget. New Year's Day of 2005 changed my life forever. It is a memory that is as encrypted in my mind as much as a national tragedy. January 1st, 2005 started out like any normal New Year's Day at my grandparents'. By the end of that day, an accident happened with my grandma that would eventually take her from me. For as long as I can remember, my family would celebrate New Year's Eve with our friends. However, on the first day of the year, we would travel to my mom's parents' house to celebrate for lunch. Every year, we would open the rusty, squeaky, screened porch door of their house to be hit with the overwhelming scent of corned beef and sauerkraut. I hated the smell like I hated homework, but I adored the time with my family. We would eat around the table. I would always have a mustard, cheese, ham, and rye bread sandwich, complete with crispy, kettle cooked potato chips. It was a delicious first meal of the year that I can always remember. The taste of the tart, sour mustard, the soft cheese, and the freshly baked bread. After dinner, I remember watching movies with my brother Kyle. This time with family was always so important to me because it reminded me how blessed I was to have a close family that I enjoyed spending time with. After our eyes became dry deserts from staring at the screen, I remember playing games with my aunt, uncle, and cousins. I was a senior in high school at the time, so I joined the adults in the kitchen to play with them. The sounds of chatter and laughter filled the room as we made memories and spent time together. Soon the day passed faster than the blink of an eye. The sky was getting dark and the stars sparkled in the snow, which was a soft, clean blanket on the earth. It was time to go home. Make sure you sit down and rest, my mom said to my grandparents as we walked out the door. Carrying our Tupperware filled with leftovers into the freezing cold, we got into the car and traveled the 5 minutes home. As soon as we got home, we all took our places. I found the soft, comfortable blue armchair in front of the television. My brother sat next to me on the scratchy blue plaid couch. My mom went straight into the kitchen while my dad disappeared into the abyss of the upstairs. Almost immediately, we heard the phone ring. What? My mom exclaimed, trying to stay calm as she covered her hand with her mouth. Intrigued by the sound in her voice, I swiveled my chair around. Okay, I'll be right there, she said as she hung up the phone. I have to go back to your grandparents' house. Grandma fell. She was cleaning and lost her balance. I'll call you with any news. Let your dad know. My mom dashed out the door like lightning. I was a little kid again. I needed hugs from my parents and reassurance that everything was going to be okay. 2 hours passed. Kyle and I sat biting our fingernails as we watched a show on the corner television. When we heard the garage door open, we were popcorn jumping out of our seats. My mom's eyes were pink like cotton candy. Her cheeks were red tomatoes. She had obviously been crying. My dad galloped down to the living room and immediately hugged my mom. They had spoken over the phone. My parents turned to my brother and me and told us that Grandma had to be admitted to the hospital. She broke her neck. Days passed and she didn't get better. Weeks changed, but she stayed the same. I visited her in the hospital and the 2 different nursing homes in which she was placed. Working at McDonald's at the time, I would often give in to her request to bring her a strawberry milkshake when I got off work. With her head locked in place by the metal halo that was being used to heal her neck, she would suck on the straw like a newborn to a bottle. It was hard to see her that way. By the end of January, my mom and dad sat Kyle and me down in our living room. Grandma wasn't getting any better. Grandma wasn't getting any better. After her 7-year battle of cancer, her body was too weak to fight and heal her broken neck. It wasn't healing, and no doctor would perform such a risky surgery in her condition. It was time to bring her home and make her as comfortable as possible. She was home for a week. My grandparents' living room became a sterile hospital environment. They had as many visitors as a famous attraction at an amusement park. I remember that I bought my hot pink senior prom dress that week and modeled it for my grandma, who smiled the biggest smile I had seen on her face since New Year's Day. Family was always at their house, remembering good times and cherishing our last moments with Grandma. Near the end of that week, her memory began to fade. Her vital organs began to shut down. The Grandma that I knew and loved was no longer in her body. On February 4th, 2005, I went to school. I remember getting butterflies in my stomach around lunchtime, and when I called home and didn't hear from my mom. I knew something was wrong. It was then I knew that she was gone. Family went to their house for the next few days. The first time I saw her coffee cup, tears hit me like a tidal wave. I will never forget how hard I cried when I saw that cup. Before her services, we stayed at their house talking and looking at pictures. Her funeral was beautiful, and I will never forget the look on my mom's face as we said our final goodbyes to such an amazing woman. Our lives have never been the same without Grandma. She was a woman with a contagious laugh and smile. She loved everyone she met, and everyone who met her loved her even more. My biggest regret in my life is that my husband and kids never got to meet her. My goal in life is to be half the woman she was. She loved family, kindness, and cherished her time with the people she loved. She was my idol, and on that sad New Year's Day in 2005, a tragedy happened that eventually took her away from my life.